Hey everyone, you're listening to the But First Coffee podcast, and today I am going to talk about how a budget can set you free. So yes, today we are going to talk about budgeting, the B word, why it's important, and ultimately how it can set you free. And here are a few reasons why I think it's important to talk about. Number one, it really isn't talked about often at all. Number two, we live in a society of more, always wanting the next thing, wanting to purchase the next thing. Something's always being marketed to us and that we should have it. Number three, we aren't given the tools to be smart with our money. There are also some pretty staggering financial statistics out there. Americans as a whole owe $1.2 trillion in educational debt. 50% of Americans have less than 1 month of their income saved for a rainy day, aka emergencies. Half of Americans aren't saving any of their money, and 42% of people aren't saving for retirement. All of this tells me that there is a financial crisis, and we need tools to become educated on how to better handle our own money. But if you're anything like me, that may seem extremely overwhelming, and that's why it took me a really long time to create my own budget. So today I'm going to tell you how I started a budget, how it's helped me set goals, and ultimately how it set me free. I also want to give you tools so you can leave this episode and begin your very own budget. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story with budgeting. So let's go to Audra pre-budget. I paid my bills. I bought pretty much whatever I wanted. I was a very emotional spender. So if I was happy about something, I would go to the mall and buy something because I deserved it. Or if I was really upset about something or sad, I would also go to the mall and buy something because I thought it would cheer me up. I also was definitely the type of consumer that if I saw something new, I thought, oh my gosh, I have to have that. I have to stay trendy. I want everything that's brand new and pretty. And I just always wanted the new stuff. And I don't think that makes me bad, but I loved shopping. And so I was definitely a spender. I wasn't saving any money at all. And this is a truly honest moment here. When I saved for my honeymoon, that was the most money I had ever saved at one time. So I really wasn't concerned about saving at all. So this did lead to a lot of worry and anxiety because I really wasn't tracking what I was spending. And there were times that I felt guilty because I knew that I should be saving, but I wasn't. So my bills were covered and I knew that I was being responsible, making sure that that money was saved, but anything else I was just spending on whatever I wanted. So then fast forward a little bit to when I was moderately budgeting. I was setting aside money for things I needed to pay for, and I was committed to the idea of saving some money, but I wasn't all in. I still wasn't tracking what I was spending, so I would go through a month and I would save some money, but there was maybe $20 here, $10 here, $15 there that just I had no idea where it went. Maybe I'd go to Starbucks or I'd go out to lunch or maybe I'd go shopping and I'd spend the money because I had it, but I didn't keep the receipt or I wasn't looking back at my bank statements. It was just money that I was spending and I wasn't quite sure where it went at the end of the month. So now we're going to fast forward even a little bit more, and I call this the full budgeting phase. It definitely didn't come without challenges and hiccups along the way. I would say it took me a good 3 months to feel comfortable and to feel like I knew what I was doing completely. I would sit down, do my budget, everything would come together. The key is that I became all in and fully committed myself to the process. My husband and I had set goals and we were determined to meet them, and I think that helped a lot. Honestly, I don't know that I would have really committed to the budget fully without the extra push of someone motivating me to do it, because I did feel really stuck on my own, and I think it was that little fear factor of maybe not having the tools, like I said in the beginning, and not being sure that I could fully commit to it, not knowing what to do exactly, and the fear that I would possibly fail. So having that extra person there to say, nope, we're going to do this, we can do this, we're both going to do it together, really helped. So once I got past some of the bumps in the road, I saw and felt the freedom of a budget, and I want to share that with you today. So the thing is that change starts with a plan. You can't expect to change if you don't have a plan. When I first started, my lack of planning got me into trouble. A plan is necessary if you want to make a lasting change in your life. So I want to take you through 5 steps to help you establish your own budget. Number 1, know what you spend. This is really important. You have to know your averages or ranges each month. So what I encourage you to do is take a month before you really begin to start your budget, keep all your receipts, track all your spending. So that means I want you keeping every single receipt for every single thing you buy. That means every time you go to Starbucks, even if it's just for $2, literally track every single penny. That means going back at the end of the month and looking at your bank statement online and writing down every single thing you spent your money on, and then breaking that into categories. So how much did you spend on groceries? How much did you spend on gas? What was rent? What was electricity? And as time goes on, you'll start to see a trend with electricity. You'll start to see a trend with groceries. You'll start to see a trend with gas. But you at least need a month to base it on so that you can start your budget and you can tweak it from there. But you at least need a baseline, because you're going to feel really discouraged if you just pick a number out of thin air and then you completely miss the mark. So before you actually commit to your budget, I would say you need to know what you're spending in each of your categories. Number 2, I would recommend that you download EveryDollar. That's the app that I use, and it is an app that was developed by Dave Ramsey and their team. It can be used on Apple or Android, and it's based on the way they do budgeting, which is called a zero-based budget, and that means that every single dollar is planned in advance for the month. So what Joel and I do at the beginning of the month is we sit down. Like I said, you know what you spend on average in each category. So we spend X amount of dollars on groceries, and we say, okay, for the month of August, we're going to spend this much on groceries. We're going to spend this much on gas. We're going to spend this much on cable, and we just write all of those down. So, I mean, things that are set in stone, those are easy. Rent, that never changes. So those are nice and easy. But things that fluctuate, you have to at least know your range. So we set all of that. And then there's lifestyle categories. So those are the things that you're going to decide each month. So maybe you're going to get your hair done, or maybe you're going to go on a special trip, or maybe you decide you want to go out to eat a certain amount of times. That's more than what you normally would do. That all gets budgeted in advance for the entire month. And that may seem like a crazy concept if you're not used to budgeting, But I promise you that once you do it, like I said, it took me about 3 months to get in the habit of doing this, but once you do that, you feel so free because the money is in its place. You're not worried about it. You know what's coming up for the month, and the money is going to be there. So you know, okay, this is how much I'm probably going to make for the month, or maybe you're salaried, so you know this is exactly what I'm going to make for the month, and you know this is what I'm saving, this is what I'm spending, and this is my plan. The key is to stick to the plan and to not deviate from the plan. And that can definitely be a challenge of budgeting, but I think that it's something that you do have to be really committed to, and you have to be determined to stick to it. But I would definitely download EveryDollar. It's a free app. It makes everything so easy. It helps you pay off your debt. It helps you start your savings, and it's amazing. So I highly recommend that, and it helps you do the zero-based budget, which I think really is the most beneficial because then every single penny is in a category. You don't have any questions about where your money's going. It's all in there. Number 3 is set goals. That's what's going to keep you motivated when you have your budget. You have those goals, you set them, and then you keep them. So if you have a debt that you want to pay off, you set that goal and you just keep reaching for it. Or maybe you have a savings goal. You set it and you keep reaching for it. Maybe there's certain things that you want to keep your spending down. Maybe you notice that you've been spending a lot of money on clothes, or you've been spending a lot of money on coffee, or maybe you've been spending a lot of money on groceries and you realize that it's just kind of getting out of hand. Well, you set that category to a certain amount and you say, that's my goal. I'm not going to go past that. And you stick to that goal for the month. And because you have the EveryDollar app and you're tracking it, every single time you buy something, you log in, okay, I spent $15 at Target, or I spent $15 at whatever place you bought your groceries. You just type it all in, and then you know, okay, I've got $100 left to spend for the month. So it's very motivating once you have those goals. You just keep on going. So I highly recommend setting those goals. What really helps me is I actually write my goals down, and it depends on what the goal is, but for me, I like having savings goals. So I like to write a little thermometer and I highlight it each month when I get a little bit closer to my goal. Number 4 is let yourself learn. There will be imperfect months. Things do come up. You do your absolute best to stay on track, but things do happen, and you have to realize that as much as you try to plan everything perfectly, sometimes things do come up that end up kind of coming outside of your budget. And so when things like that happen, Joel and I just have another meeting and we say, okay, this came up. What are we going to do? How are we going to remedy this? And so instead of just saying, oh, the budget's blown, we can just spend whatever we want, we come together, we talk about it, and we figure out a plan. So just allow yourself to learn through those moments. And number 5 is carry cash. If you know you're going to overspend in a certain category, or you have difficulty with a certain category, carry cash for that. It will make the purchase much more emotional and a lot more difficult. So if you spend a lot of money on coffee, or you spend a lot of money on clothes, every time you go clothes shopping, only bring your cash. Don't allow yourself to use your debit card, because it's a lot easier to hand over plastic because you don't see the dollar amount. When you're handing over cash and you see the money leaving, it's a lot more difficult, especially when you see how much you have for the rest of the month. So that is really, really beneficial if you're trying to curb some of your overspending. those are the top 5 things that I would recommend you do if you're starting a budget. This is going to help you move in the right direction. If you have no idea where to start, but you know you want to get your money situation under control, there's so much more that I could say about budgeting. It's something that I've become very passionate about. But this is something that can get you started, that's not overwhelming, and it's something that you can do today and you can start working towards. Something else that I would recommend, I am a big Dave Ramsey fan, so if this is something that interests you and you like what I've said, I highly recommend you looking up Dave Ramsey as well as Rachel Cruz and potentially taking Financial Peace University. You will learn everything I just talked about and so much more. It has dramatically transformed my life. I know that it sounds like really over the top, but really, truly, it has changed my life. And I know that it would do the same for you. So I will link some of that information in my show notes. And I would love to hear any feedback you have, especially if you do decide to use some of this and use the tools that I've given you to start your own budget, especially if you've never started a budget before. I would love to know if you start a budget because I just love talking about stuff like that. I feel like it's very nerdy, but I absolutely love it. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of But First Coffee. Also, please follow Public House Media on Twitter at the PH Media and on Facebook at Public House Media to stay up to date on this podcast as well as the many things happening on the network. You can also leave us feedback on our show, and if you have any questions or comments, we love to hear them. You can also follow my podcast on Instagram at But First Coffee Pod, as well as my website, www.butfirstcoffeepod.com. That's where you can leave me feedback on this episode. I do have an email on there as well, so if you go to the contact section, you can send me an email there. I would love to hear from you, and that will be all for today. Thanks, guys.